So Sunday, you've all been saying it. That's what we know Canada's squad will be revealed. Other nations have already been revealing them. USA just did the other night, a big production. I woke up this morning because I wanted to see England's squad announcement, and it's interesting to see how other nations do it, gentlemen. Always because I'm curious to see where Canada is in comparison, like to their treatment of the sport, the way other countries where the sport is king, and they had a 2-hour pregame show. Sky
Yeah.
Sports did leading into England's announcement. We're
Could
going
have
to do
been
our best.
5. They could have made
Yeah,
it 5. Really.
we're going to do our best here on One Soccer on Sunday to talk forever and ever and ever about the squad reveal. But let's see who Canada is going to be going up against, because the nations in their group have revealed their squads. Belgium, that's the first nation that they're going to be playing on November 23rd. When you take a look at their squad, no surprise in Kevin De Bruyne. Romelu Lukaku, by the way, was named, even though he pulled up, he too, with a hamstring strain. So I know that's a lot of faces and a lot of names on that board there. But let me just I'll begin with you, Ollie, and just what's standing out so far.
Well, ever the optimist, I'm kind of looking at it in the sense of how can Canada beat this team, right? And trying to figure out where there could be, it could be a way in there, as difficult as it's going to be. And I think you're immediately drawn to the defense, right? In that regards, there's older players like Vertonghen and Alderweireld who are in their 30s now playing back in the Belgian league. And then there's some younger players who, some of whom are also in Belgium, some in England and France, but who don't have a ton of caps or international experience and will be going into their first tournament. And there's a big gap, right? There's nothing really between those veterans and young players. So that, I think, is what Canada will be looking at and saying, we've got Jonathan David, one of the top strikers in Europe. We've got Alphonso Davies, one of the top players, period, in European football. We can hurt those guys. We can cause those guys problems. It's everywhere else where the issues are, right? Like the midfield is incredibly deep. De Bruyne, one of the best players in the world. They're going to have to get a grip on him. And probably the big difference, I think, between Belgium and Croatia is if he's fit, Lukaku is that world-class number 9 who they're going to have to keep a handle on. So it's going to be incredibly tough. It's a very strong team. I don't think it's a team without weaknesses. But any result Canada can get will rank as immediately the best in the program's history, I think.
Putting it on paper, it's a scary proposition. Not to mention the goalkeeper, who's a multiple-time Champions League winner and one of the best goalkeepers in the world in Courtois. Look, this is a great team. Lukaku was the name that you're waiting to see whether it was in or out. When you have a 26-player squad, like, you might as well take a player that might not be fully fit who can provide that kind of impact. Like, it kind of mitigates the risk, doesn't it? Lukaku's played 5 games this season. That's it. 5. Like, this isn't a player who's played for months and months and months. So whether he's fit, how his recovery is going, that's where your eyes are going to turn to. Openda might be the player that could step in and play. I think Ollie mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. He scored 7 and 14 for Lens in France. I think with Wout Faes at the back, plays for Leicester City. He's very good. Like, they have players that you might not have heard of before that can step into a starting role in this team. This team is absolutely stacked. One scout that I speak with, I respect him to the hills. He actually thinks that Canada has a great chance to go in and beat Belgium. And I'm like, explain this to me. He's like, Wheeler, just this is the way it is. He thinks that Canada has a shot against this team. But when you see this group and the faces of the names on paper, you're thinking, I don't think he's right.
I will say that
he's right.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm kind of of the minds that they might have a better chance against Belgium than against Croatia.
This is becoming the sentiment, right? I don't know if we had too much time on our hands.
Then, guys, let's take a look at Croatia's roster. They made the announcement. So, Wheels, why don't you take it away? There's definitely some familiar names on this squad. And the man, even though you could say he's getting older, he's still the face in Luka Modric. So what else stands out to you about Croatia's roster?
He's 37. He, Kovacic, and Brozovic in the midfield have over 300 caps combined. It's like, and they've got younger.
And
like
Perisic in there.
Yeah, exactly. Ollie kind of mentioned it when it came to Belgium. How now some younger players have come in. Croatia was looking kind of old and stagnant 2 years ago, but the last year they've refreshed their squad. They've won 4 straight. They beat France in the last window, 1-0 in France. Obviously, one of the World Cup favorites. Gvardiol in the back. Sorry, as I spit that out. The Leipzig center back, he's excellent. Like, he steps in and fills the hole of some of these aging center backs. Like, this team might actually be better than the team in 2018 that went on to qualify for the World Cup final, like, who played in the final against France. This side actually might be better than that.
I definitely think there's more of a transition that's happened here with Croatia than Belgium, probably, when you look at bringing in the next generation and doing it in Nations League pretty effectively. So that's what I mean is I think Croatia will be good. And I don't think there's, like, I find it hard to see them struggling or blowing up in the group. I think Belgium, there's more of kind of there's more room for variation. I think they could win the tournament, but I think they could also be that team that maybe it's just one tournament too far for a few players and they blow up in a way that we have seen top teams blow up in the past. I don't think there's so much risk with Croatia. They're a bit more kind of solid from back to front, I think. And like I said, have transitioned to some younger players who look like they're going to be just as good as the ones they're replacing.
Yeah, usually the teams who have won the World Cup, or I guess have gone far, are the ones who, like, then also the next World Cup don't even make it out of their group. It is so bizarre when you look back at some of that stuff. But here's the team in the group that, I know we're hearing different things now, and there's the belief that, Canada can maybe get a result against Belgium. But I feel since day one, guys, the team that a lot of people felt Canada could get a result against was Morocco. So they made their roster announcement. I don't know, Wheels, how you're feeling about that when you take a look at this team and how Canada stacks up against them.
Some of the questions about this side in terms of their personnel, where you're like, are they going to have Ziyech? Are they going to have Mazraoui? Yes and yes. Two players that were out under the previous head coach are now in with this side. I don't know why Morocco is being underestimated so much. A perennial top team in Africa, and a side that drew Spain 2-2 in the last World Cup. There's experience in this group, and 20 of their players are European based now, like, and playing for top clubs: Bayern Munich, PSG, Chelsea, Sevilla. Like, there are good players in this Moroccan side. It's not the side that you saw in the summer that absolutely got worked by the United States. This team is much better. And look, before you get to Morocco, Canada needs to find a way to come away with a point, at least, against Belgium and Croatia. So this is a game, you don't want this to be a dead rubber, the third and final game. You want them to find a way to pick up a point and keep themselves alive. So a potential win in their last game could mean whether they advance or not.